What do I have to do for people who are new? Because this is a cellular model with a cellular layer that you are seeing on the left, in which it really is not an infinite creation in an infinite space, but like all the creations of the source, because they are limited precisely because the universe could not be something different. I think with my logic, right? And then some people think, well, and inside and out, what is there? Well, I already say this is already a toroidal vision, because on the outside there are the same energies that are emanating in the pure center, EH, which seems to be empty, but it is not empty because the void does not exist, but it is a greater vibration, EH, that is not perceived. Oh, hey, but why not perceive it directly, but indirectly we can reach it, and there is my interest. So in that model, they see that we would be in the part on the right that is illuminated. That part is illuminated because the sun is shining there, and then if you see them, those are the continents that will be drawn, illuminated. It is on that part. Well, we'd be there, we'd be inside that ball. And the other stars are seeing us there, even Saturn I see in the sun. Well, that would really be another type of spheroid that is inside, but of a nature that is not exactly the same as that outside, that of concavity, but rather it is a nature above all that can be called different names, or plasma or electric or whatever you want to say, but that it is not the same, and therefore it is not those people that have been telling us that they are so far away. And those sizes, otherwise everything would be reduced, but with great energy power. That's what I conceive. And to the right you have of that representation. Well, it is. If you see it, it's essentially the same thing. I had to put the whole sphere that is placed here in red to make it smaller, obviously, because really between the two spheroids, we can say that there may simply be maybe 100 or 200 kilometers between the two. How far does experimentation go on Earth? Which is more than that distance, it has not been possible to climb. I interpret all that in electromagnetism and a separation barrier that doesn't allow you to leave, and that you're separating the two steroids. So on the right is rather the model, which I say is more toroidal, but if you look at it, well, the entire structure is an overview so that the person thinks that in this model we are not lost. We are not lost in an almost infinite space of nebulae and stars that tell us that maybe they don't even exist anymore, so many millions of light years away. We're not there in that structure. For me, it is a mental structure that what does to the human being is to unstructure him from his true power and origin, and importance. And that's why I try a little, because my vision, concave bull and dial, well, goes above all more to these other issues that are also more spiritual than cell phone. Well, not that. He doesn't usually touch it, no, hardly, So that is the first slide, and if you have questions, and well, it is also worth saying that I simply explain. I do not want to convince anyone, but simply contribute. And to whom it serves, well, I am glad. And if not, well, I'm also happy, because at least he has heard something that maybe in the future he will recapitulate again, and maybe he can find meaning in it. And if not, the very fact of watching this video already means that that person is looking, And that's very important to me.
Yes. A technical question that we are going to edit later. Jose, I'm telling you that I sense that you have the minimize tab in which you see this too very small, and maybe if you maximize it like on YouTube. It seems larger there, doesn't it?
Would that be it?
Yes, now you should be able to see the images I'm showing you well.
I can see both the box and the slides. They're appearing bigger for me. I'm not sure if others also notice the enlargement.
Yes, you can see. Yes, yes, yes. Others are observing it perfectly if it's set for you, so everything's fine.
Well, we're all still like that if you think so, right?
Yes. So let's continue, Jose, with the presentation. The next page is this.
Yeah, well, I'm going back a little bit. I'm going back a little bit. So here I make a synthesis, huh? That we're going to see the light, huh? In the concave models, and as I have already said, the horizon, the phenomenology of the horizon, and that above all in. At the end of it all, huh? That I will develop it further. Well, I'm going to focus on what I know, on what I say, which is a permanent phenomenology, because all the refraction, all the reflection, all the phenomena that we are going to see, huh? Well, that's a great complication, and I stop. I'm going to finally focus on everything from this video and the next one. It is to focus on that I stop looking for a little more. The truth is that we should focus on several points, 3 points above all, which is what is permanent to all observations. If you like, then pass in this relationship with the light. In the cellular concave, because it is really interpreted as a projection of the sun focus, and then here, since this is already a reminder, evidently the light bends upwards. So here you're looking at the sun projecting and then the inner surface, because we're inside, as we've seen before, because obviously the curvature has a curvature, the interior, the ground we step on, right? Well, the light that is projected has more curvature than the curvature of the earth. And so that's why here we are seeing how it rises and then is collected in it. That it was heavenly. So the light here would have to bend up. In relation to the viewer who is seated, he is seated on the floor, on the concave floor. Obviously not. Then for me, well, it is stable, and it is the fundamental thing, because in this a closed system like this, well, if everything that comes out creative or projected from a center is broken, that I believe that everything comes from a center, that I can also say the creative center. Well, then it necessarily has to bend, obviously, because how is it not going to bend? You have to bend the light, you have to bend the air, you have to bend the earth, you have to blame the water, you have to bend everything. But of course, before a slightly naive thought, or simply at first glance, since one does not see that curve as he is going to see it, if by the same logic regarding its extensions, it either occurred or did not occur with that large extension. The first issue is that you couldn't see that kind of curvature, and that's almost common sense. Now, if a person says, no, I only believe in what I see, well, he will stay there, but then he won't want to stay there. But he will not be able to explain anything of the entire life that he is going to be here. He will not be able to explain anything of the seasons, how they occur. He will not be able to explain anything at all, but he simply stays with that vision. And to me, it's a very, very poor thought. The human being cannot stay only in what he sees. He has to go beyond what he sees, because precisely what is not seen to me is what it has. More sense and more power, and believe what you see, huh? For me, it is my vision, that type of subtler, more powerful energy that seems like there is nothing, that everything is hollow. Well, for me, it is the other way around, huh? Therefore, if the person only stays in a materialism, what you see is no longer there. Nothing is even explained. Or it is explained poorly, as I think it is perhaps being explained in other models. Well, nothing. We each have one in our process, no. But that's why mine is to try to understand everything and not stay with just one vision, huh? Because, of course, I stand on the beach and I see the horizon totally straight, and then I would say, well, everything is straight, right? Well, but it's not that I have to ask myself many other things, many other phenomena that I'm seeing, and I have to give it a coherent interpretation, that official system. It gives an explanation with a certain coherence. We must recognize it, EH, but when we investigate it in depth, we see that that coherence, well, it doesn't suit us and not me. That coherence does not suit me, nor does the intended coherence of the flat system. So that's why I'm trying, As long as they don't prove me otherwise, then investigate this model. So now on this slide, I'm going to give the general idea that this is to continue in it what I mean by light and electromagnetism. No? So what is expressed on the right, what are you seeing there? That you see a sunspot light, Well, then I would say that for me, the light, And what happens here? Because it is not only interpretable as a sunlight, but also is there in total union what is an electromagnetic field? That is for me before even the sun, EH. The primary aspect is electromagnetic, and the sun, which is a source of natural light. And there are also spotlights that are artificial, Which evidently, well, that's there, Well, we can say that for me it is good. Obviously, it is what is most perceived, and it is what we have to base ourselves on. No, But I also want that. I also want to know that a person comes to think that there also exists as a support for that focus, the sun, light as a focus. Well, also what a field is. Explaining it has those two issues, a field, but also a focus on the light that we project here, and everything that in the different models that are being seen is always interpreted above all as a focus, I say, if that's true and authentic, no, But also for above all, what are other very strange effects? Yes, I can also explain the question of a magnetic field to you. So an example, what I mean is we're before dawn, I mean before the sun comes up, Before the sun comes up, we all perceive a clarity, In any case, we put ourselves, yes, if the person, for example, who is on the same meridian, and maybe we are in the time of the equinox. Hey, in the meridians, look at all the distance there is, for example, from the meridian that is in the north, the meridian to the meridian that is in the south, Well, then all the people there will perceive an illumination, but the sun has not yet risen. The spotlight isn't there yet, but they'll sense an illumination. And so for me, that's a field. It's a field, Because it stretches from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere, What if two people, especially at the time, so that it is a thing of balance, that it is the equinox, then the sun goes along, moving along that equator, Well, then if you take the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, and before the sun rises, look at the LA, the great distance that there is between a person who is perhaps in the south of Chile and another person who is perhaps in Europe, in the other part, but in the same hemisphere. Well, before the sun rises, those two people will simultaneously receive the light. But that light that I'm telling you without focus, so that's the structure, what I have a field, So a field. Does it have a connection to the focus? Does it have a connection to the focus? Not in this case, but it's not exactly the same, is it? And then in that light, you will say, well, then there is instantaneous. There is no path that you see the light moving from south to north. There, instantaneously, the person who is in Northern Europe, in the same hemisphere as the person who is in the south, instantaneously the whole place. All that travel from one point to another is instantaneous. I mean, that's a field, I'm saying this so that you understand what a field is, right? And then that field, of course, is also supported now. Then when the sun rises, it is already the focus, EH. And the two of us, I've always been studying everything and seeing, depending on the focus, how the light moves, how it curves, etc. No, I say, yes, I feel all that. I agree with everything. No, but also, yeah, would it be convenient for some people to say, well, yes, but this focus as such, and then that's already the effect of electromagnetism? and magnetism as a field, huh? And then that can give rise, when we now see for me what the horizon means, which would be the conjunction of two forces, just like in Unimex is the North Pole and the South Pole, huh? Well, for me, the horizon would be that conjunction of those two forces, huh? And therefore, it would be much more explanatory if, and we see it that way totally, in the question of the field rather than even of the focus EH. But I already say no, that the two are totally united, the two concepts and the two, no, neither excludes the other, no, then here then. We are seeing what we are, something, what I mean. For me, this question of a magnet is primary. You have a magnet like you're seeing here on the left, and those are its lines of force, huh? Well, in the center of the magnet right there where the emission is, huh? That on the right, in the little drawing that is in the center, they have highlighted it in yellow so that it can be seen, but that one cannot be seen. But even if it cannot be seen, that is where it is. There, all the strength there. So that you, through that magnet that is there in the center, through the line, that yellow separating those two poles, you cut it there through that part of Maria, and immediately two other magnets are formed with the same structure. What does that mean to me? That to me means there's a force that invades everything, huh? And it's electromagnetism and their magnetic fields, huh? And that's what sustains all creation, huh? Primarily, and then when there are other next steps, well, then it is already focused. It is focused on the sun, EH. And so what I want you to have for the strange phenomena that we are going to see here in this video, especially in the next one, which are for me explanatory precisely that at that point where that separation is, there is a permanent struggle of force readjusting. And that's why. These types of phenomena occur that are left aside and not taken into account. But I say in the model that I do take that into account, and it explains to me, and it doesn't take away. This electromagnetic grant doesn't take anything away from the cellular grant, huh? And it does not take away anything from cellular vision. But in any case, it can provide understanding for these other phenomena, which are not given to them. Visualization YI are usually ignored, no? Well, that's what I have put here. Then here, that magnet, what you are reflecting are force fields that are spheroids, huh? One central, which remains unknown, then two other spheroids, which are the other two bulls. Well, for me, this simple scheme is what explains the whole reality to me, huh? That then this same triple scheme, as we are seeing here, multiplies, huh? After the triple goes to the flower of life, which is already 6, which is 2, huh? And finally, they have to be at least 3, so that there are also 3 axes of space. The 3 axes of space, because we already know what they are right, left, up, down, and inside and outside. And then that simple scheme of creation. Triple, well, for me, it gives me great understanding, eh? And also, well, you help me with these phenomena that we are going to see, huh? Then give him that vision, not that they're at that central point, because there is a kind of constant readjustment of strength, and they produce those strange effects. So this next one, the question is important because, for example, this is not for me. That for me, this is real, and I believe that anyone can also experience it. It rises in a balloon, and you see the horizon, but at the same time, you see that it leaves, the horizon rises with you at that same height. So, have we ever seen a NASA vision leave the horizon below? I haven't seen any, nor will I, eh? And will you see that curvature? We already know that, yes, that we can perhaps enter into discussions about a small curvature or about a small curvature that has appeared a little less so, but they are minimal issues that can be attributed to other factors. But for me, what tells me the most is precisely that phenomenon that would be directly related to what I say, to electromagnetism. Hey, that's why I say it explains much more to me, huh? Because then, if really the same as in that magnet you throw iron scratches, huh? And then if one is positioned exactly at that central point, well, that's where it stays. Here it is now. If it moves a little towards one point or another, well, it is quickly fired to either of the two poles, right? So what does it mean that there is that center? This center is the one that is separating heaven from earth. And then if you're separating him, huh? Well, it is logical that you cannot pass it, that even if you rise as far as you can also, because you reach a point where you cannot rise. That's precisely why balloons also explode. That is, I have said it, a distance of more than 200 kilometers or nothing happens. No, because you reach that point of separation and electromagnetism that the cellular concave earth or anyone does not enter. No, but I do. Because precisely to me, well, this is a phenomenon that can be observed and that I give this explanation. Not really, because you cannot pass in some way by physical means. You cannot pass to the other part. That's how creation worked. For me, it's mostly a separation, huh? And these are already spiritual matters. A source of itself separates two poles, separates them, and she is in the center. And then in that center is that field. Separation electromagnetic field, and that same separation electromagnetic field, the one that doesn't allow anyone to get out and overcome, huh? And of course, then what happens? That if you rise to a certain point, it seems as if you are not moving forward because you are in your normal plane and the horizon goes with you as far as you can. There comes a point that you can't, and you can't, and I think they'll never be able to, But anyway, there are still people who think like this. It can be removed or with a technology. So I think not, because for me, the concept that is, I have a mind is an adolescent mind, right? And so my way of approaching it is that way. By physical means, creation is made so that we don't live here physically. How can we just go out? Well, I believe through spiritual growth that then we have our own magnetic field. I'm also called the morphic field. Purify yourself so much, huh? That he then accesses a level, because here what would exist for here are dimensions. Yes, different degrees of vibration to higher dimensions. Huh? That's why I'm in the model. I don't see it as some people looking at each other and saying, well, this is small here, locked up as it is. I say, no, you're not understanding nature, because nature may have many dimensions. Huh? Do we at least know one? I at least know it, not an inferior one, the one I am, which for me is a procedure, and there must also be superior ones than this. Is it a little bit to tell you that for me, this phenomenon, that I consider it good, not just me. Otherwise, if we are going to see each other, it continues to happen to you, do you think? Because in a simpler way. For example, there are chronicles from the 19th century that are in 1857. In England, in newspapers, about how the first people who went up in balloons, well, they tell you what they experienced. First, people had in mind the system, the official model, and did they think that they were really going to see the Earth, not at many heights, as can already be seen, EH, but simply maybe 3 kilometers high, balloon elevation, because they thought they would see something similar, because what was called a convexity, EH. Well, then they tell what they see. And that. I mean, they make these chronicles, but anyone can do it. Why, we'll see, won't it, he says. The main peculiarity of viewing from a balloon at a considerable height was that the altitude of the horizon remained practically at the same level as the eyes, at a height of 2 miles. The surface of the Earth looks concave instead of convex, because I would surely get the idea of that of the concavity and say and retreat during the rapid ascent. While the horizon and the globe seem to be stationary, that is they themselves too, as they have told you and were telling you and continue to tell us what it is 1,600 kilometers away. Well, they have to, and they thought maybe if I separate something, some movement will be seen. No. Well, they tell you that they also seem to be stationary, quiet, of course. Obviously, which already a lot of that, but notice that then also anyone that doesn't even need to get in a balloon, anyone who I know that they see looks down, huh? And then what are you going to see downstairs? That we all imagine a grid? Well, then the squares would narrow, everything would be seen more and more reduced, and instead he looks ahead and is seeing the horizon and gives 360 degrees and is seeing it at the same level. Well then, in their mind, even in the perception that this seems to have no importance, but what they perceive is a concavity, it keeps happening because there is this question of also another newspaper. One of those that below says, the newspaper that tells you the same thing, huh? It tells you Another curious effect of aerial ascent was that the Earth, when we were at our highest altitude, did it appear concave, looking like a dark ball? Huge, of course, because what is low is shrinking, evidently to the tourism above. And instead, what you have in front of you, that gives you that breadth, he says, instead of the conversational sphere, as we naturally expected to see it. Of course, people expected like that. The horizon always seems to be at eye level and seems to increase as we rise. That's important, huh? Because I think you're going to expose, huh? A lot more height and a lot more of this. Well, it seems you have more vision, huh? And they do have that themselves. Here they state it, and that here they will only have risen, I say, at least 3 or 4 kilometers, nothing more. He says, until at the end of the elevation of the circular boundary line of view, as they see around between situational, becomes so marked. He says that the Earth assumes the anomalous appearance that we have said of concavity instead of a body with kiss. Are these from the last century? The first ones continue to pass, and later at a higher altitude, EH about 16 kilom, because the previous ones 6, maybe 4 or 5 or 3 kilom, right? But there is experimentation which everyone can see here and consult what they like. Antoine Picard, that in 1932, well, in lead capsules that you're seeing there, so he tells you what he saw, huh? And the Earth says, how can I tell you? The Earth is flat with rising edges. It's telling you the same thing as the previous ones, really. Sure, look down. You see it clearer, and you see it. Stop straight ahead because you can see the edges, not those. So for me, although these are low, but to me they are reflecting something that has coherence. Coherence with concavity. It doesn't keep happening, if you like. And so this is how small I wanted to play, only vertically. At heights, I wanted to play only this, nothing more, because you have this very well played, and others at much higher heights, no, huh? But then say here also that now in length, where am I going to focus more? I mean, horizontality, not height, huh? Well, here they are, for example, what is the vision of the left would be the vision. What do they come to tell you? That it should be according to the teleplanists? No, that things are getting lost because they are getting smaller, right? And they don't want to consider it, or if they consider it, they justify it with atmospheric effects or optical effects of sinking, which is the sinking, which is what is perceived on the right, really the ships, for example, and the buildings in the well, they are shortened at the bottom. I believe that this effect is permanent and therefore has to be taken into consideration with what I'm going to say. Permanent defects that are what must be, not to count on, not to get us closer to the truth, AH. And in that same vision, in the distance, well, yes, we must recognize the terrapanists, that they are right in this, that in the horizontal distance, not upwards, but in the depths, because there are many. Concrete experiments, EH, that all the ruling party would have to take, no, and not always want to give it the explanation of perspective or the explanation of refraction or reflection or the atmosphere. As we are going to see, because it is too much, that is, no, it doesn't fit as much as this is already famous, as Chicago is here from the other shore of Lake Michigan, at different points, maybe at 83, 6 kilometers away, in which we are told that then none of those buildings would have to be seen, and they are seen. Then this here is right for me on the right. They do want to justify it with higher mirages that have no meaning. So this does keep happening because everyone knows this, huh? And then this would also be the same because the curvature, huh? According to the official understanding that the official system understands the curve, understands the distance, and the Earth and the horizon as a geometric question. That is, as if the Earth is a ball. Let's imagine a ball, maybe 3 men in diameter, for example. No, you take a ruler and then you put the ruler there. You see what can be seen or what cannot be seen. Can see if it is sunk. That's a geometric conception. And I say, well, and I think many too, I even think terrorists too. Isn't the question of sinking such is not one in the horizon? The question of the horizon is not a geometric question. It's a visual thing, huh? Is it a visual question? And that the explanation that I give is precisely that question of that line of two forces that are projected there. Because then, for example, this video too, if you see it, you see them giving you titles. You see buildings in Buenos Aires from Colonia, Uruguay, which should be hidden behind curvature. And that is experiential, So they are right. It keeps happening because there are many more examples. And this is also Barcelona, which from Barcelona, you can also see Mallorca, huh? And this video is also part of the Pyrenees, which is from the Barea brothers, because they are right, huh? Tierra Plana is 206 kilometers from Barcelona, Mallorca, Pyrenees. You should only see 65 meters from the highest point in Mallorca, because you are right. All the officials absolutely desire this, dismissing it by proclaiming numerous visual effects of the atmospheric conditions. Additionally, I believe eliminating this is excessive. Indeed, I agree with their viewpoint on this matter and move forward.
Jose, before continuing.
One interrupts, do you comprehend?
Yeah. Yes, in that photograph, you not only see more than you should, because, well, in that video, the Varia brothers themselves recognize that there is unique climatic conditions lead to colder, lower atmospheric layers. Thus, not only do you see further, but also what you observe further is perceived at a higher elevation. And I think that should tell us something or not, Jose?
Of course, the concavity should tell us that there has also been a lot of that. There are even photos that I didn't bring for this video. A photo, I think, from World War II, that you look at a photo in the distance and you look and say, this is impossible. How can it be? Because it also looks higher to another farther point, just like not here, huh? So for me, those are signs, many of concavity, obviously not, but flat earthers don't want to fall into these signs. There should be some who investigate should fall. I trust some of them, huh? Especially now that later many of them have perhaps discovered that when there are people who investigate, flat earthers, true, who also investigate and knowing that there are things that do not match. Well, I'll tell you, do not act like some that I have also seen who have returned to the official model again. I would like that instead of returning to the official model when it is no longer, when they already see things that they do not hunt on the flat earth, well, that they at least investigate the concave earth, and then possibly if they investigate it thoroughly, well, they will say, well, they can fall into our same account, that it is a model that has no major flaws in anything, and that almost everything fits, right? The map fits perfectly because it is the same as the official one, but the other way around, not exactly. So here is a little what I want to say about this variety of mind within the concavity that explains everything to me, especially that part with interpreting everything as electromagnetic forces. Hey, then the horizon for me, which would be the toroidal horizon, since it would be a plane of balance between polar forces, and that's the same thing as electromagnetism and the same thing that happens in a magnet. For me, a magnet is one of the best fractal we have to understand electromagnetism, right? And therefore, for me, the real horizon is not a geometric issue, as the official has always wanted to interpret it. Geometric things that are, as I already told you, a physical thing that you can see the curvatures and such. No, but it is above all a magnetic question. And what we perceive is a question of perception. No, and therefore surpasses it. For me, it surpasses the concept of perspective, as we are going to see, huh? Because perspective is also important, but that is especially in representations, no, and not in plans. But the true horizon goes beyond that of perspective. And then there I am putting that drawing down so that I can understand a little what I want to say. So there you see the green line. Hey, what I want to say about that plane of balance or separation between two steroids, which for me comes from the beginning of creation. So let's notice that then there is a little red arrow that comes up that is pointing to what it would be. The what is also told is the concavity, the celestial sphere. Not everything that is all that world from the moon upwards, we can say it like that, no, EH, what the sky is not. And then from there, on that yellow line, another little red arrow that indicates the ground we step on, which is the concavity that we step on, EH. And then that, for me, that question. It makes me understand a lot of that phenomenology that I am with you, that we are going to go. That it looks strange, and you see that strange phenomenology precisely when it approaches that point of separation that we are going to see perhaps more in the next video than in this. Well, the next direct than this one not, huh? That you see very strange things. But let's look at one thing with respect to specific things, such as electricity or electromagnetism, EH, if you take it. And you are here, perched on that point of blue where the red line is, pointing out what the ground we step on is, and you take those experiments like me, you take a drone and a thread, a copper thread goes up, huh? Maybe 100 yards up, huh? Well, what happens then downstairs? Well, you receive a very small but evident electric shock. Because then the pole of the entire sky, how to put it this way, for one is separated, it's positive, because here everything always has to be the same as a magnet. One positive and another negative. Since the positive pole would be the sky and the negative pole is the ground that we step on, therefore, if artificially, where it does not correspond, because everything, all the copper and everything has to be here flattened as it corresponds. If you do something against nature and raise that thread up a maximum of at least 100 meters or more, then what happens there? Well, a spark is produced from the positive pole to the negative pole. And that is why that electricity is produced. So I say this so that you have an idea that I am based on, and one everything, huh? All the phenomena that explain it to me much more. Because thinking that for me the horizon is that visual line is a visual line, a visual perception, but that plane of separation is reflecting you, eh? And that's why, since we will see everything that is approaching there, since phenomenology is happening, we are going to see strange phenomenology, come in. So I say that we have to understand, I repeat, the horizon not as a geometric question, but as an optical and visual question, huh? And that too, that is also another point of confusion, because here too, precisely, the perception of light also intervenes, EH. It is another factor also to complicate it, no EH. We are not going to find out much about the foundation of light or vision, although I already think I have said something. I think I said something in the foundation of light, also distinguishing two parts, one as a magnetic field and the other as a focus, EH, as a magnetic field. It would be, for example, I'm going to put it this way. If you in a dark room light a match, if you light a match in a dark room, because in that dark room, like everything here, everything is magnetic fields, because the magnetic field of that light extends in all directions. Hey, and in any of the other directions, there is already a distance is instantaneous in one. Here in the other, not. Instead, that would be magnetic effect, not electromagnetic effect of fields, the light as a field, huh? Now, if you take a flashlight in that same room, small, you turn it on, well, there you are already there. And the light is not like a magnetic field, but rather like a spotlight, because then that spotlight already has a direction. And if you project it on a wall, well, there it will light up more. Only there is it directed as a focus. Now, in the initial part of that flashlight, if we dispense with the other one in the initial part, well, yes, you can see much more from much more distance, right? Why? Because in that early part, you're acting more like a field. That is why I also want to say that, of course, this is a complex question of what we are dealing with, but by providing that question, I do not want to confuse it further. But in any case, to facilitate the understanding of the phenomena, these strange ones, not if we also take into account the question of magnetic field. I like the light, don't I? Therefore, for me, the last thing that science did by bringing to light a speed of 300,000 kilometers per second, well, for me, that is real nonsense, especially to hide what the fields are. Because alether would be a field that invades everything, EH. And for me, it would be the foundation of creation. It would be the foundation of where the force is emitting to a higher level, which is why we don't see it, huh? EH, but then what if after Michelson-Morley, they already charged the ether, huh? Of course, the human being's ability to think logically is also charged, huh? And being able to focus precisely on the experimentation that you are seeing, giving it meaning. And there they charge it saying that light goes at that speed, and that maybe there are stars that are already millions of light years old, that stars no longer even exist, and the light is going out to us. All mental confusion, eh? Considering only that as a projection, say, of light, which is, if we try to analyze it, we see that it has a lot of logic everywhere, not anything. If you want an exactly good step, well, then now I am going to go here to rule out issues that the Tatrapanists have based themselves on for me erroneously. Well, I have to do here in this matter of vision, that this entire video goes from the horizon of vision to the horizon. And in the distance, especially in the distance, more than at altitude. Well, this effect that you're seeing on the left, here you see an eye, and it would be a camera or an eye. I told him, well, to use a little word buried, no man, not buried at all. But he looks lower, doesn't he? Where are the others, these, and below, where is the green signal? Well, it can be seen that that eye is no longer buried, but that it is seeing things normally, because we normally. Everything is very well organized. We're normal height, huh? Than animals, of course. Animals, on the other hand, don't have it to be able to perceive something that's not too deceptive, huh? And so I've done this experiment. Anyone can do it, huh? Because this comes in relation to some videos that I have seen, and we are going to see below what many terrapalmistas have said. You see this? Is it a question of perspective? That's why things are cut at the bottom, because I think the word you use is perspective, right? So you take here a little figurine like this, that this is a Neolithic idol, that I also investigate this issue of artifacts a lot. And then in the part, the two drawings, that is the two photos, are photos recorded by camera. You put it on the table, I put it for you. And have a red bow, huh? And you put that camera at a normal height, not buried. And then you will see that if you move that idol away along the table, anyone can do it on a table or on any other surface, and you will see that, I don't know, that it doesn't cut on the side because it still looks red, right? Now you put the camera flush with that table, huh? Hey, not at a minimum height, but flush, which I say buried. Hey, well then what happens? That you go down there, you go away, and indeed as you go away it is cut, huh? And many transbanistas have said, you see, this is a matter of perspective, it is cut from the bottom. So here we have to differentiate two things. The first would be unburied chamber. Now I also have important issues without natural horizon, because not here, we are not on the natural horizon, huh? Here we are only in a house and in an unlimited space, but we are not seeing the natural horizon. What would be the natural horizon? The natural horizon would be where you go, for example, or you are in nature, in a desert, and you see it, or on a beach, and you see the natural horizon there. This horizon is not the natural one, and what below would be? Buried chamber without horizon, that is, in that house or in this house, is not the natural horizon that we take into account. Are they small details to take into account? Because if we don't get involved, no, huh? And so in such a way that if you are buried, the smell that I say is low, it produces the effect that I know what telepanists cling to say that they are cut at the bottom when they are not actually buried, but that it is cutting visually. Move on to the next one, because this is also a video. You must have seen him down here, huh? You see that a person puts the camera on the ground. I take that. Buried chamber, because it is normally not like that. It is normally the size of a person or something else, even if it is 1 mem or a little more. It puts the camera buried and the horizon east of the person who begins to move away. I think many people will have seen this video. No, because many Tramaritas said to themselves, we already have the solution. It is moving away in that field that I believe is a rugby field. Well, it's getting cut, and it's getting cut. Yes, but that is a buried chamber. And also on an unnatural horizon, because there you are not seeing the sea. You are seeing a whole series of forests or a series of buildings. And that is not a natural horizon, huh? Do I have to make this caveat too, because people don't fall, huh? And then there's this effect, huh? That cutting effect, apparent. But It's a visual issue and has nothing to do with it. And it does not justify the other thing we have said, that the ships really on the horizon are sinking. And of course, we must take that into account. They're cutting, huh? And with this explanation that they give you, you shouldn't have it, because this is a false explanation, because it's not putting you. They are doing two things to you. First, the buried chamber. But the most important thing is that the horizon is not natural. And if it is not natural, it produces this effect on you. But a visual effect, huh? But visual, but deceptive, evidently it keeps happening. I don't know if that is understood, because right now I have also seen a video more recently that shows the camera buried here, but instead, it is not an artificial or false horizon like the previous ones, or like not inside a house or inside a stadium or inside the building, if it is not the natural horizon. And then I do give credibility to this video. Do I say that people look for the video below? That there it tells you the channel is concave, hollow, cell phone. That channel, well, put that title that they have there at the bottom and watch that video, huh? Because I do give them credibility. Because here is the natural horizon. What happens now? That they put the camera very low is what I said before. Buried camera, because they put it. So this would be the same as I have said previously with the buried chamber. What is the difference? That's why I like to point out the difference, that here they are focusing on the natural horizon, while the other examples that we have seen at the table and we have seen on the baseball field. Well, it wasn't the natural horizon. This is the natural one. And then what are they looking at there? And they wonder and surprise, because they see, look at the top, there is only even one ship that looks closer, but there are others that are further away and at that height. How is it possible that such a low chamber could be at depth other ships that are farther away if the Earth were convex? Perfect. It's something similar that we have seen before you. It seems to me that you made a reference, which I don't remember. Well, right now that you said it, what I said, well, that hunts more with a concave Earth. Well, this also hunts more with a concave Earth, because a camera buried like this, only 10 centimeters away. How is it possible that you can see in the video, you can see that the leaves and the water almost splash them? You understand, you can see what is further away, apart, and not only that, but another, even further beyond. Well, it would have to be totally the other way around. Firstly, the first was almost not seen. Well, if you see the first, that the second was never seen. And then you can see for me some of the observations. I have seen hundreds of experiments, and I analyze them in depth. I also discover what montages are. No, but for me, this fits me. And I explain it in this way. No, that is a true horizon for me. And it shows me, well, that concavity, up, so we are analyzing what I already said, concave and toroidal horizon. It keeps happening, although this would be the same as the cell phone, huh? Would this effect be the same as the cell phone until now? The two things completely coincide. And here in this other matrix code channel that this one started for me, I have been following it. I think this one has stopped starting every time, like a flat earther, right? But then, of course, he does a lot of experiments, and he does them very well, and he does them here in Spain, in places that I know, but it's English, English or American? No. Apparently, it seems that he has a place here, and then he does good experiments here, all very detailed, telling you all the technical details of the atmosphere, the height of the elevation, etc., etc. And finally, I have seen the videos that he had made. He made them like panistatique. He has already removed them and has only left some because they were all very well made. But of course, since in the end he opted, because the plan didn't match him, then he opted for the official one, which was me. And there he is, right? But then I'm interested in posting this video, huh? Because this channel is very rigorous, but it overlooks something. What I do, he overlooks, because many times we see with our eyes, but more than with our eyes, we see with our brain. If you don't have a type of structure in your brain, or you're seeing things and it's like you're not seeing them, right? On the other hand, if you already have a structure in your brain, then your type of knowledge, then you are the one who sees much more details. No, huh? And so that's what I see in this video. So here it totally puts you, look in this video. I also think you have left this one there, huh? Getting titles, right? Ships over the horizon, part 1. Container ship container are these ships that can be like a cargo ship or that carries many containers. No cargo ship. So there he tells you exactly what height he puts the camera, puts it 5 ft above sea level, tells you how far away the horizon would be at 2.7 miles, tells you all the dates, tells you the temperature, the visibility, and the type of camera, huh? And the objective. That this Roscosta, Spain, what it is. That lighthouse that is placed there continues to pass, well, precisely 5 ft or 1.5 m. The height of the camera and the horizon at that height, well, it is 4.3 kilometers away the geometric horizon, we can say. So take. That we already say that for me? No. But we have to take it into account. No. Above all, it keeps happening. And then he does what he does, very petapanist. That many people say, look, you see, there is nothing there. You see the first image, you don't see any type of boat. In the second, it starts to focus, and you can already see a little dot to the right. Here, the third below, you can already see the freighter. I'm going to call it a freighter, not to mention a container ship. And on the far right, your approach, because it looks better there, right? Sure, a lot of telepanists sometimes catch. It says they put this image or one text. You see how it's not there. They tell you how it's not there. And now I zoom in and it appears, which means that it never sinks. Well, no, it's not like that, isn't it? And then it keeps happening. And then it tells you the characteristics. It tells you that the horizon is clear. You also see that there is no lower mirage. It keeps happening. And then when 14 minutes go by, why is it to leave the camera there recording? It's rigorous, huh? When 14 minutes pass, the boat goes away, huh? And then you see that it has sunk. No, you can no longer see the whole other part we have been seeing there, huh? And then he asks the question, this is curvature. That is, he's sinking into the curvature. Or it is a product of the refraction of light, which flat earthers also say a lot about. No, said it's not refraction that does that effect, not curvature or refraction of light. Does he ask that question? It keeps happening, and then he keeps presenting images, because there you see first, before the 14 minutes have passed, and now to the right, when 14 minutes have passed away, that freighter, that is sunk, huh? It keeps happening. And now when 2 minutes pass, more than 14 to 16 minutes, well, now a fishing boat passes in front of here, huh? I don't know, the fishing boat is passing in front of here. And at the bottom, the other one is seen sunk. That was already sunk. So at 14 minutes, at 16 minutes, look there that it says 16 minutes. It's the image that has them. It keeps happening. And then he himself says the fishing boat, that is this new one that has come, appears taller than the container ship or the freighter, which is the one we are analyzing, appears taller. Indeed, it appears higher. No, before there are images that show that this is a video. It continues to happen, and now 24 minutes pass, and then you are seeing the ship. The other one, the first ship, which is the one that is anisando, which is sinking. It is not sunk. It does not continue to happen. And at 20 minutes, at 29 minutes, here on the right, look to the right. Here you can hardly see it, while on the left you can see a little house from the other. Which was the other? It was the fishing boat, huh? But there on the right, you can hardly see it. At 29 minutes, it continues to happen. And then he here does his entire interpretation. No, I don't want to stop reading too much about this, no. But simply, here he describes all the conclusions. And then for him, he tells her that the experiment to him seems to be consistent with the curvature of the earth. That is not that it is flat, but that it is curved and curved. Countess of the official model is what he says. Because here everything is defined by the camera as it was, and you have seen it, right? And one sees it like that first and says, well, it's true. But then It keeps happening, but then something is happening here that he himself hasn't even noticed. But of course, as I go with more eyes, as more vision, well, I come out, no, I come to the realization, no, EH. So if they notice and it makes a compilation, go back and look at the images. At 16 minutes, you see the East Freighter that is sunk. Look at the kind of sinking it has. While the much taller fishing boat is appearing here, right? But the images before 24 minutes on the right, if you look closely, the 24 minutes on the right, which you see is as sunken as at 16 minutes or less sunken. I see that anyone realizes that at 24 minutes, he is clearly less sunk than at 16 minutes. And he has seen that, but no, he has not fallen into that detail. He has not fallen into it. These are the things that I get into with the model of magnetism, electromagnetism, and the kind of horizon, which is a living thing, and that it does this type of effect, sometimes as if they were a living thing that varies and looks more like bigger or smaller. So fluctuating says that something fluctuates, that would be a mysterious horizon. I live pulsating the interrogation games that for me fit the effects, these weirdos that don't fall. How is it possible that now at 16 minutes, that all that has done very well and is very rigorous? But if you look at that one, nothing more than the upper part is seen at 16 minutes. And in the other, you see even much more at 24. How is it possible? Well, that's why I say that in the vision, when they go away in that distance, that separation effect. Electromagnetic fluctuation there, since it produces this type of effect, it continues to happen the same as this other effect. This other channel than this, yes, this, yes. I think it is still flat Earth. No, let them put it there for channel B this. I think it still has it the same as the previous BMLS B69. That is the channel. And look in this video, magnification. Yes, you see it. That is sea level magnification, and it puts atmospheric magnification. It keeps happening. Because then he finds out and he says, of course, he wants to defend Terapanism. Well, he says, when you see these images that are cut off at the bottom, the images are reduced. Well, then everyone says the same as the official, which is that this is in the convex curvature. He says, but no, I'm going to demonstrate here. It's not that that's not the case with the magnification effect putting. This is also rigorous, All the explanations putting during what is seen in the distance over time, how it is produced in the same object that is fixed, how it is produced, shortening or not shortening, if it is the effect that is called magnification, continues happening. And then here they give you the data, which he's going to compare after 10 months observing them putting the camera in the same place. All of Anacapa Island is his target, which is 31.6 and 3 miles from Miramar Beach, such that he can just stand up and do it, understand. Is this also rigorous? This fraternity is still happening, And then he himself recognizes, says magnification. Sea level, he says, not all magnified horizon days are the same. Many different types of distortion on different days, says things vary from one to another. And with magnification, what you're going to say with magnification is really burying or hiding, This is what he is going to demonstrate, and that it is an effect that changes, which is not because things are moving away, but rather that over time, that magnification, that is that type of contribution occurs to you. And you say, and they tell you that it's because it goes after the curvature. Therefore, it is what it comes to say that it does not continue to happen. So here it is, one of different months on day 1 to 1, so that you can see the images. Well, I have cut all this out, which are the ones I look for in the video, and I see them much more in depth than I'm not going a little to the essentials. No. So here you have the 2 occasions at the same point, that the phone has defined. That was in 2016, one in EN in the 12th. The 12th would be December. Hey, Above that would be the first, and another would be on the second, would be in February, not on those dates, huh? And then he says in February that it is the third. You call that day 3. He says, well, there is a minimum magnification, huh? And then the first one from above on day 1, well, there is a maximum, a notable magnification. And then since there is a notable magnification, well, then it is more buried. It is more cut. While on the other day, everything being the same place and everything exactly the same because there is less magnification there. And since there is less magnification, it is less buried. It keeps happening. Let's see it more clearly. So that we can see it more clearly here, on the first day, there is more magnification. They call it magnification of affection, and it looks shorter. And on the change on the third day, it looks less buried. It is being appreciated. It keeps happening. And here it is the same. It is not the same, yes, but so that it is probably seen as it is, then what about him? What does he mean? That there is an effect that is, regardless of whether you move away more or less, if there is no shortening effect, that varies. And that shortening effect that varies, and he calls it magnification, it is vision in the distance of the horizon, which is that force field that I'm talking about. What produces these types of effects? La. The interpretation I give him. The interpretation he gives it is that the earth is flat and simply what shortens everything. From the ships that move away, from the places that are far away, due to an effect that is to compare. He imagines it will be very mysterious that things change with that magnification effect. My interpretation, precisely in that plane of balance, is that it produces these types of visions when the distance occurs that you go further and further away. The farther you go, the more they produce you. This kind of is like a sort of realignment of forces, huh? And at a given moment by X variables, since it looks more buried or less buried, still happening, huh? So here I explain it. We believe the magnification effect, we believe is real. He has done a good one. A good one has been taken there for almost 1 year because of it. Not that, but we interpret it as a living movement that occurs inside a closed system and precisely puts it on that horizon that I am saying as a plane of balance, of force. But we consider that not enough proof, as this wants to do, that the earth is flat. Hey, because the horizon should not be considered as a geometric element, but rather as a vision or an optical perception. But optical in relation to this electromagnetic effect that I tell you, it keeps happening. So now about this, I'm going to go fast because this is also Matri from Code, who makes some very scientific videos. He doesn't do it. He gives you all the data, EH. He gives you everything, EH. What happens is that I am also going to say, and I am going to say it in advance, that he does this data, he does not do it at such long distances that are what discredits the official model. If he does it maybe less than 20 kilometers, then less than 20 kilometers, well, then there they can justify you, and the flat earthers justified you a lot. But he himself also using refraction and using the other, he also justifies it to you. On the other hand, if you see it at a long distance, as we have said, at 83 kilometers, let you see what you do not. Of course, that is one thing that you have to adhere to, that the Tepapranists are right in the concave model, is that also the light, for its own sake, also penetrates more. We're going to tell it to bend over. Huh? Also, apart from these effects that I am saying then, here I am going to go long in this text, see this video. A long but very rigorous video in this code matrix. Well, giving you the title they have down there, I'm going to say it well and quickly so that they can see the complexity of the vision on the horizon. Because precisely because of that complexity is why they have so many explanations. Do the telepanists and the ruling party give you both explanations of your model, but are they not all the same? No, because, for example, vision in the distance at a long distance, that's where the telepanists are more right. It wouldn't have to be seen, right? And that looks like that. Do the ruling party have to justify it with all these types of phenomena that they are going to go away and I am going to go quickly on them? What is going on? As I am already telling you that he turned to the ruling party, because in the end, all these phenomena, he is going to interpret them. just as he did with the little boats. With the little boat, the one that did not see the effect that I said, because he is going to interpret them all as if phenomenology adapts more to the official model than to the plan, right? So this is still happening, that the person who watches the video, then he has here, as he has been here in Spain, doing all that. Well, this would be the coast of Torox. And the objective would be for this lighthouse to serve him very, very well, because from different towns that are far from this lighthouse, as they are going to see, well, they are going to make all their observations to see if it sinks, if it does not sink, etc., etc. It keeps happening. So there are the two places that you are going to observe by projecting your camera, and your vision would be projecting towards the objective, which would be that tower you are seeing. There would be a town called Torre del Mar, which is 7.5 miles away, which is 12.07 kilometers away, and another that is Almayare, which is closer, right? Sorry, which is further away, it is 16.7 kilometers away, which is 10.4 million. So from those two, all those observations that he's going to make in this video and in another that is very well made, well, of course, but let's note that it is not the distance like the 83 kilometers from Lake Michigan that would have to take it into account. He forgets that and only takes this into account, that it does not exceed 20 kilometers. And so here, yes, here almost everything can be justified. And then I put it here so that you can see the complexity it has, because then there he is going to detect what they are. The upper mirage, the lower mirage, what is called lumi-lumi, which is seeing the highest, what is called thinking, which is seeing the lowest of what corresponds to it according to the geometry. Towering your freaks that get kind of narrowing, huh? Stooping, which means no. The other way around, instead of narrowing it, is to compress the objects. And also what these last 7 are also comes to be like the fog, not the heat that produces you and produces myelin. So all these phenomena in the vision of the horizon, well, so that they can see the complexity they have. And that's why here each one defends their own and such, but in the end and in this and the next, I'm going to limit myself to 3 effects, which are the ones I think they have. Then it keeps happening. I'm going to go quick on this. So first he detects here what the upper mirage is, which is sometimes also called the Fata Morgana. And then here is the whole explanation. All the data, the camera, the distance from Almayate is said here, huh? People can pause it and read it because it does it so well. And what Wikipedia tells you is that the air in the air heats up, huh? Well, the air that heats up and the air below, it's lower. And then because that investment produces you, it rises, and then that's why it produces you. Do you get that Fata Morgana effect that is in relation to the temperature of that atmosphere, huh? In such a way that then the cold air is what also causes it to rise and then produce that Fata Morgana effect. It continues to happen. And then here, what would that Fata Morgana effect be? Here, for example, there is the geometric horizon, not that it would correspond, no. And there is also what is seen. Then the geometric horizon, well, its concealment would be 34.1 ft feet. It would be. But instead, the apparent, what you see, well, it is not so much concealment, it is only 20 ft. That is, you see higher than what would correspond to you according to the geometric horizon. That is, you see 4.229 Dm higher or less hidden. From the geometric concealment, and it detects it and looks like this, huh? But then that's what you call it, and you give it what I tell you. Well, this is a higher mirage because it seems that what shouldn't be there rises. No, huh? Then it continues to happen. Then another effect that also occurs is the opposite. The lower mirage that it is lower. It looks lower than that of the apparent horizon. And it is for that very reason that same air that ascends EH and air, which is colder, which is then denser and lower, and then also produces the other mirage, which is the lower one, passes. in such a way that they put the images first for you to see, not here. And then the geometric horizon, for example, which was the corresponding one, is 2.6 m. It would have to be hidden to 2.6 m. Instead, you see even more. That is, or see less if you want to see a man instead of 2.6 being hidden by the geometric horizon, you see hidden 5.18 mm. That is why it is called inferior, because it goes lower, that effect, So I think, I don't know if you're getting along. I think so. It's not being understood, not explaining everything, that precisely he sees that phenomenology as higher or lower, and here attributed to mirages, EH, in relation to the geometric, EH, the geometric. You see a mirror higher, as we have said, and another you see it more buried, EH. It keeps happening. So now there is also another effect called lumin, because you can also see things beyond what they should be seen, such that, for example, the concealment would be 17th, for example, not that they would have to be concealed. And you, instead of seeing that 17-foot concealment, only see a 10-foot concealment, nothing else. Is all this referring him to what he's officially supposed to do, which is geometric concealment? That's in the geometry table, and that's objective according to the thing. But he's seeing all these effects here. He's proving you, with the photo and with everything he does, that there are other effects that are these. Hence the complexity that alters it. What happens is that he is going to give you the explanation. It's more, the officer is truer than the one in the plans. Is the lumen still happening in the lumen then? As we are seeing here, the concealment would be 17 ft, but instead it doesn't look as hidden. If not only it is seen less hidden, for example, it looks 2.1 meter taller than it would have to look according to that geometric concealment. It keeps happening. It's another other effect, obviously not here. That is the looming, and this is the opposite, the thinking, EH, so that you can see the number of defects there are. EH, the thinking, is the opposite. As we are going to see, it keeps happening. Here are all the dice that people look for it. Then it tells you here, well, this thinking there. So in thinking, notice that it would have to be hidden 70 F. But contrary to what was the looming in thinking, now what is seen, and he records it. It is that it is hidden more. They are hidden 25 FFT. That is, it is even more sunken. This is the opposite of the previous one, which was the lumi. This one, without which, is that it is more than you, which would correspond, it keeps happening, and so it's good. There are also other effects like this that I also, well, this is very good, because this man and this analysis analyzes all the phenomenology and the different names, and all that is very good. So another effect here, that these previous effects that we've been seeing, is in relation to elevation or less elevation in relation to the point that should correspond, which is the geometric. Now what follows is no longer based on elevation, but based on form. Based on the form that we perceive continues to happen, and based on the form that we perceive. Well, then one of these effects is called towering, which comes in relation to with tower, which then here. What is seen, the object that is seen as stretching, it is seen as stretching, as if you were stretched, not gum. And another opposite effect is stooping, which is the opposite, it is shortening. But these are no longer in relation to the elevation, more or less in relation to the point of the geometric horizon, as the previous ones are, but rather this is in relation to the shape of the objects, EH, the shape of the objects too. Is this type of phenomenology established? Hey, do they look stretched or do they look the other way around? Contracting, no, And for me, all these, and especially these last ones from Tower and the other one, well, it makes me a lot of games with what I am saying about that line, that it is. All these types of effects occur, but the official model, they frame everything for you in mirage refraction effects. And this thing that simply tells you, well, it happens like this, and that's it. It happens like this. It looks narrower like this, and I'm going to frame it, and I'm going to say it too. Enese. Not then the Ludwig and the thinking, since they changed the apparent elevation of the these in relation to what it should be with that geometric horizon and instead the tower in. Stretching and stooping, well, what is changed is the shape of the object. It keeps happening. So I wanted to bring this here for people to see who start investigating how complex this vision is on the horizon, huh? But I'm always going to try to simplify it in the end with three effects that I'm going to call permanent, huh? Not in the distance of the horizon. So he concludes here, as I'm telling you, that this one finally pulled for the official land. After all these that are very well done, all his experiments, he says, more or less it says, a less apparent obstruction to a more apparent than geometric obstruction was observed with a varied horizon distance. The observations did not match the geometry of the flat Earth model or the predictions of an infinite distance to the horizon, as flat earthers say no. And it didn't seem, he says no. They didn't seem flat or concave. I don't know why he says the word concave here, because here he doesn't, about concaves, as far as I know, no, he hasn't studied anything. And he says, and they didn't seem flat or concave with the different types of light refraction phenomena. That is, all he has finally is that they are of light and refraction, H. It keeps happening, you see, and this, AH. And so that's why he says that all the observations of that one who sees the lighthouse there, all observations were consistent with the geometry and predictions of the sphere model with different types of light refraction. I mean, the official model is where you turn for that. But I have to tell him, but of course, has only a distance of less than 20 kilometers past you, where anyone can say precisely with all the complexity that you have seen, since everyone defends such, but you wouldn't have to forget the fundamental thing about the terrapanists, which is the great distance, that then in that great distance already all these effects. As some have wanted to justify it, like that presenter who wanted to say a double inversion of mirage, that is absurd, that doesn't exist, huh? And no, and not disappoint yourself so quickly and go back to the official model, huh? But anyway, I would like each one to also research the model a little, because a scientist is a scientist. Fabric, huh? So I have brought this video here so that you can also see the complexity in, and so that you are not going to lose much one in this, because you are going to be able to defend a tetrapanist with all these things. He's going to defend his model, and this same one also defends it for you. And I know and apply for the other. Understand? Is it still happening? And so this is what I say here at the end, here with all his explanation. The person, because he explains everything to you, not according to the official EH, he explains everything to you there, EH, because I simply say that in short distances, which are less than 20 kilodame, which are what he has done with Almayate and with the other place, EH, object perception can be justified in the official model by these environmental optical phenomena, now at long distances of more than 50 kilometers. The perception of objects should be to question the official spherical model, which is what I did from the beginning. I think almost all of us have done it at first, but I wanted to bring this video. How's this concave horizon thing going, huh? So that people spend a little, that we take into account all the experiments, huh? And complexity, and that we have to look for something. Hey, we see a more solid foundation and take into account all the elements. As I have said, I have taken into account, for example, what is an artificial horizon, what is not a horizon, and the horizon, as we have seen, a real horizon of the beach there, to see the buried cameras, EH, and all this I have taken into account everything, EH. But of course, with that same one, with all those phenomena, and it must be said, that's at that distance of less than 20 kilometers, huh? So with that, only he himself does that, and anyone else, because he can also tell you what else he can tell you, not all this is the LA refraction or anything else. It doesn't keep happening. So that's why in this video at the end and in the next, I'm going to contribute a little of this vision that I'm telling you at the beginning, that you see less. That light and creation and everything, since it is through electromagnetism and through the horizon, is interpreted precisely by the point where that electromagnetism, since it acts the same as in a magnet, separating two types of basic spheroids. And there are not only spheroids, all of nature does it like that. And that's where they occur. And I can give more interpretation taking that into account to this type of phenomenon. Hey, what would be what I tell you is a permanent phenomenology, because we have all seen it in previous ones. All of that is very variable. We have seen, for example, for magnification, that it varies at best from one date to another. Does the magnification vary on another date? We have seen that these same ones who do all that to you also tell you the day. The time tells you everything. It does very well, right? But it is recognized that the same atmosphere that produces you, that the densest air goes downwards, that produces that effect, and the highest things are seen. That's very variable too, isn't it, EH? So what can we stick to? Or me, at least, what I have done to seek more understanding in this? Because what I am telling you, a permanent phenomenology and not as variable as all the previous ones, right? And to get closer to the more real model, huh? And what would be that more permanent phenomenology that I tell you? No, because it would be a loss of the bottom of the objects that are moving away, or the ships, or the buildings. That for me is permanent, uh, although it can be more or less. The variables come together well. Another thing that almost no one falls in this, then almost no one falls. Elongation of the upper part. Hey, maybe that's something similar to what they tell you at towering. They tell you that gestures become longer, right? Well, here I'll give you the explanation, EH, and I give you the effect. And we are going to see in this and other videos precisely this, what I say about the elongation of the upper part of the aspects that recede on the horizon, right? And all this other stuff also fits me. And the explanation I give is that of the horizon at any possible height, huh? Let it be seen precisely, as we have said previously, this simple thing, but very, because nothing affects me. He has never offered me the image of a rocket rising and leaving the Earth's horizon below. I've never been offered that, and I don't think I'll ever be offered that, and then me. Well, this effect is also the other permanent part, EH. And these three parts of the model that I'm telling you is the horizon. Consider it as an effect on the one hand, optical effect, yes, but it is not, but an optical effect in nature itself, huh? And considering what magnetic fields are, and considering magnetism, huh? So, for example, in the image, it's on the left. Well, that would be the images that are seen in the city of Chicago there. At the top, see that all that part is 83 kilometers or so, because there are different measurements too, right? Well, look, the lower part is hidden, huh? The photo above looks more complete, and in the real photo below, which is not just a photo, it is a video. There are videos also for me that is very significant. If I don't, I can deny it. In those videos, what I see is precisely what they tell me, the effect that I am telling you. So look at the bottom, because they are shortened. So that part is obviously shortened, since it is the permanent effect on the image in the middle. Okay, well, the second effect that I say to keep it in mind is also permanent, huh? We will see it, and we will continue to see it in the next live broadcast. Notice that it is closer. The most real image of that tower that is here on the left. And when that separation occurs, well, the upper part of the one that is farthest at the bottom is lengthening, and is lengthening from top to bottom. Eh? I tell you, that is the elongation of the upper part. Another permanent effect for me too. And the third one is that I say that that one is there, as if we said, there are as if things underlying the electromagnetic field that don't allow you to overcome it. So for me, these three effects, above all, more affordable, with more experimentation, these two of the loss of the lower part and the ostentation of the upper part are permanent. That is, in all the experimentation that I have seen, those are permanent. Now, if you put Morgana, the others, and the others in every one fault, well, you're already involved. Now, what is it in everyone? Well, this. Hey, and then based on that, well, I give you the explanation for me that in this the cellular concave does not enter this in these disquisitions, but I do enter and I give you an explanation. It keeps happening, and it's about to end, I think. So here is what we are saying then in the prison above on the left. What they tell you, what should be seen. They also tell you, just like the sun, they also tell you the sun is also becoming small, right? It has not been seen that it does not become small. You put a filter on it and it remains the same. No, because it would still become small. But that's not the reality. The reality, the permanent effect on the right, which I'm saying is that ships and buildings are shortened and everything you go out on the horizon is cut at the bottom. Is it the one to take into account and also the one below, that in this one almost no one has fallen or falls, or they leave it as if it didn't matter. Hey, look at the first boat on the left, which is still closer to what, because that is a recording that we will see in the next video. We are going to see the videos, the person who wants it and look for it, and what he sees. The ship is leaving and being seen. That is a sailboat that is moving away. But notice that as it moves away, what happens to it? What is the permanent phenomenology that I say? Notice that it lengthens from top to bottom, from the martyr downwards, for example, because all that candle, it lengthens. Hey, just like in the building on the right than the other, which is further in the distance, since it gets longer. So for me, those are permanent phenomenologies. While as long as someone tells me no, now I have analyzed hundreds of videos and hundreds of such, and I see that in everything. Well, then those permanent phenomenologies are the ones that we would have to take much more into account to see what the models are. In relation to the distance on the horizon, the most accurate, it keeps happening. I think this is almost over. Is this the last one or not? Well, and then inside this is the same as the cell concave. Isn't it the same? Well, then the explanation is valid because it is the same as the cellular concave. Exactly, that it really curves like everything. Well, you have the upper part there and the entire part is curved. Blue, well, that is the surface we step on. That is what we step on. But the other of the light and of the gestures that move away and in relation to the light, well then, as they go away, they are cut first by the lowest part, evidently EH, and then that effect. Although that also at the very bottom, which is the convex one, also gives the same explanation, doesn't it? EH. The conversation can also give you that same explanation because they also explain it to you that way. But of course, the conversation is that those of us who are in this world with the concave know that it has many more flaws, right? But in this effect, he can tell you that same explanation. But for me, the bad hip is this, that everything curves, and evidently that curving of the light, as we have seen at the beginning in the second slide, we have seen that the light bends from that wood and then returns to the sphere. And on that journey, it already arrives here, at the base, EH, and then the other path begins. And that's why it gives you that curve, EH. But I give you that explanation here and here that I totally agree with the cell phone. But in the other effects that I have told you, and this is the last one, in those effects that I have told you, the cell phone does not enter, for example, in this matter of elongation, since at the end, the last one. So that's what I say. This one does not enter. Notice that it is put there in yellow because that separation plane, at the same time that we have seen that it is the same, that it is a positive pole there with respect to the electricity. This is how the pole of the selector soul sphere works. Let's say the spheroid. The spheroid is light blue. Let's put it that way. And that's convex in relation to the concave. The concave, that would be where that little boat goes, EH, by the sea, Well, it would be rather the other pole, the negative pole. Well, notice that little boat on the right is starting to move away, And as it goes away. But notice that I have put arrows there, meaning that this is the plane of separation and balance of the two steroids. And that phrase also for me is indicating that is constantly acting. Is it acting because, and then they occur in measures, and as one goes away, well, it has that permanent effect. Notice that the little boat, the extent it goes to the left, notice the sail that is getting longer, H, and this is how it is done. And as far as it reaches, it disappears, sinking and cutting from below, as we have said, which is also a permanent effect. Well, no. Now we will see a lot of experimentation that doesn't end up cutting off completely, sinking completely. No, that part, which is the raised part, that almost no one falls off, continues to the end, diluting until suddenly plague disappears, but disappears by the part of him. And why would that be? Because there it's pushing just like in a magnet, the force, and it's pulling you down. We can say like this, it is stretching you down like chewing gum, which is the same thing that the push of the ether is also called ether push, that I tell you, EH instead of gravity, that everything throws you here to the ground on the one hand, and on the other hand, it does the opposite to you on the other. No, and the point of the horizon for me, the toroidal concave horizon, huh? Well, for me, it is. Can you explain to me this phenomenology that we are also going to see in the next live broadcast if we manage to make a series of phenomena, huh? That there is no clear explanation, and that I, in this model, well, yes, I finish here, and I would also be interested if there are any questions about this, or if not, because I have told you that this, above all, went, as you have seen, everything was in relation to the bottom, more than with the vertical. But I know that you have done an excellent job at height, at what height, how it looks at height in the concave earth that you rise vertically. How far does it look, and how does it look? And it seemed to me it's excellent work. And it seems to me that you can now give, because I think it is interesting that you also offer for many researchers who are in this field, which I think you are going to do, as you told me at the beginning, because that type of seeing how to elevate ourselves, obviously we see more, but maybe not as much, not as much as the pan member spreads to you, that everything has to be flat and see a lot more, right? So I'm done here, huh? And willing then to listen to you and see. And if you have any questions or something fantastic.
Go, I thank you. And here the people in the chat also thank you for your side, that they say, it's not geometry, it's visibility, says Jose Manuel Calvo to Norquinel. He says, it could be that with a long distance optical geometry game, the real morphology could be demonstrated, don't you think? That's the one question, but it's actually the combination of geometry and optics. And what Jose Antonio did, according to what I understood, was delve into aspects that neither the flat earthers nor the convex ruling parties pay attention to, but rather that they, with their paradigm, pay attention to what suits them, basically to confirm their bias confirmation. But in this lower elongation, no official heard him talk about that. And the flat earthers merely notice the Fata Morgana, and even go so far as to tell you that the little boat shrinks on the horizon and is finished. So everything that did here was an in-depth look at all the permanent and non-permanent phenomena that happen on the horizon and about which there is not much talk. Isn't that right?
Exactly. I have given a fan here to save many people from getting stuck in some of the aspects. For example, one that gets stuck in the aspect when you put the camera buried and says, I already have the solution. I already know that the thing is cut, because when it is left good, then for what? To make things easier, huh? And to facilitate, give a vision of how complex it is. And also you and I, because we are going to give the orientation that we believe fits more with this reality, right?
Perfect, Jose. And good regarding what I found out is about J-Tolan, especially because I consider that J-Tolan is, in my way of seeing, like an argument used by flat earthers. And not just in my way of seeing it, it is. It's an argument. Along with the one that the water does not curve, there are also their long-distance observations, which make them believe that the earth cannot be otherwise but flat. So, as we have seen in previous broadcasts, water is a substance that It cannot be more moldable by forces and by the container. So I could perfectly not repeat that flat earth dogma, because if you told me that there is another substance, because there are substances that do not bend but water is not. It is actually very moldable. So removing that now could also remove, in my opinion, another dogma that can be seen. At totally exaggerated distances, as J. Tolan proposes and affirms, in my opinion, from what I have found out, basically because he confuses on many occasions whether his position, because we understand that it is difficult to go on the plane filming and at the same time know in what position you are. When a plane is traveling very fast, and if 30 seconds pass and you are worried about filming, you no longer know what precise location you are in. Then he misses the location, and he also misses the objects he observes.
And
For this purpose, this presentation, but not with the purpose, be careful to discredit or belittle the work of J. Tola, who, as I am going to present, it also has salvageable issues, but rather that we look at other aspects, not at trying to see issues almost 2,000 kilometers away, because that physically and optically is not possible. So in this video, called as it is in the title, Colorado Rocky Mountain 4, 300 or 500 miles in the minute, 9.14 seconds. The author of the video expresses that the Earth is flat, with an image like the one you can see here. In fact, it is the same image that says the artist plan. And in the lower right part, he puts a box that has text that says, view towards Yellowstone. 600 miles? Understanding that 600 miles is equivalent to 965 kilometers. So the image looking at on the wing of the plane denotes that the zoom you're doing is not extreme, since the wings of the plane are not significantly magnified. Which suggests a moderate approach level consistent with a focal length of approximately 50 millimeters. I chose this image precisely because it is one of the most complete, in which the same image shows you everything. It shows you that it has a moderate approach of approximately 50 millimeters. It shows you the map below on the left, and it shows you what he estimates he is seeing at 965 kilometers. But it's strange because even on a DSLR bed, like he signs it, but in that video it doesn't show what camera he used, that he should have shown it to one, not go around guessing the technical data you used then, even with a DSLR camera. The viewing angle with 50 millimeter focal length is still relatively wide. It is not a telephoto lens. It is not considered a telephoto lens, which would cause objects that would be 965 kilometers away to occupy a tiny fraction of the frame. So what today with this is that it is strange that they watch 900 kilometers with such a wide editing angle that it is not even considered a TV stand. So secondly, the map on the bottom left says that the total length of the strait is 990 kilometers. It says so in the white box, which is halfway down the map, not 965 kilometers, And there I go to what I was telling you, that this lack of precision in pointing out the location where the image was obtained can drastically alter the results. Then, based on the same map given by J. Tolan, to locate the camera in Colorado pointing towards Yellowstone. The thing is that I imported the geometry data into a 3D program like Blender based on that map, but it turns out that the image on the right is the one I obtained with that 3D camera, but it does not match the J. Tolan camera because the target, the red dot seen in the background, is too far away, making the picture not look much like the original picture. However, when one gets closer with the camera, you get a picture much more similar to the original shot, but not at 900 kilon, but at 200 miles away. And with this, I want to point out that J. Tolan did not necessarily do it with treachery, with the intention of deceiving. But yes, when you have a paradigm in your head and try to confirm it, you can be wrong. And this is what I am pointing out here, that this vision from the camera on the right, which is much more similar than this one here, because the mountains look very small in this image, it works and works better with a distance much more similar to that of the official model, which is around 300 kilometers towards the horizon. And that's where it should start cutting, but in the concave model, since the curvature is not downward but upward, it can be a little more. It's not strange that that happens. So, in this J. Tolan channel, it is claimed to have filmed a distance of 400-200 and up to 1900 kilometers, all this from an approximate altitude of 10 kilometers. Sometimes up to less than 10 kilometers, 8 kilometers for example, which is inconsistent even under the hypothesis of a flat Earth. This is because optical and atmospheric conditions do not vary so much between days to justify large differences. In addition, factors such as light scattering and loss of contrast further reduce the effective visibility at long distances, which is known in flat earthlings as atmospheric opacity. Are you sure that if you quadruple or quintuple the distance, the atmospheric opacity will not cover your objects? Are you sure you're really watching? Almost 2,000 kilometers away. So this is the question that I asked J. Tolan from my side, that it cannot be that one day at a distance, at a similar height, you, before seeing such different distances in depth, it cannot vary so much. What is not absurd and contradictory and seems to me redeemable is absurd and contradictory. From J. Tolan's work are images like this. This is an aspect to highlight in J. Tolan's work. For example, in this video, at minute 50.17 seconds, you can see what appear to be mountains cut off by their bottom, apparently suspended above the horizon. This is funny because it is difficult to explain that there are objects that are seen further away and that they are also seen higher above the horizon, and that trend of the lower cut that José Antonio has already exposed, or in this case in minute 1.7 of this video, is maintained. You can see flattened clouds that seem to be farther and higher above the horizon. You can see that there are clouds, well-flattened lines above these clouds that are more like cotton. Okay? Is that you see these clouds above the horizon, and that's consistent in a concave Earth model. How would I explain it in a more technical way if it could be said like this, or perhaps better? There you will see that you can perfect this explanation, but basically I would explain it in the following way. In the image, we have a camera with a range of vision. Limited, which is this black sphere that is seen in the image, and that range of view is limited by the curvature itself in the light path. But what if you have an object further away from that range of vision that is limited by the curvature itself in the path of light? You will inevitably remember the bottom, but if that object is tall enough, you may see the top of the object. And here, not only the multidirectionality of light comes into play, but also that in the lowest part, the curvature of the Earth itself also comes into play, which generates a limit for the angularity of light. That is, if this observer who is on the right side of the image rose perfectly, there could be the lower part of the object, as happens in real life when we rise. And we look further towards the horizon. So that's what José Antonio meant. Regarding J. Tolan, in summary, it is actually seen a little more than it should in the official model. I could round it up to 400 kilometers considering conditions. Including refraction, but I do not suggest at all that you base your cosmology on distances greater than 450-500 km at a height of 10 km, because there are people who have shown that this is not the case. And that in the same way in which I did that exercise with respect to J. Tolan, there are also other people on the part of the official model, like Hugo Perez was here, who point out to you that they are confusing. Unfortunately, the objects they observe. So you don't need to cling to the dogma that water doesn't bend, and you don't need to cling to the dogma that you see tremendously communal distances that even the atmospheric opacity itself would not allow you to see all that if the earth were flat. And, well, there's that. I meant José Antonio. I don't know if he has anything to add, if you understood me, if you agree or disagree with what I said.
Yeah, I really think so. When you see all the phenomenology, well, of all the ore of the ore of the ore of the two main theories of space, the official and the plane, because the gap is another thing that I don't even consider important to refer to. Well, I believe that if the person comes to me, they will see that the concave, therefore, is the one that really balances almost everything and some issues that we have to address. That is this question of the horizon. I believe that at first glance, that was what made the model begin to be questioned, because it is seen beyond what corresponds no, but it should not or should not be seen beyond what corresponds. But it has led many people into the conception of the concave Earth. But if the concave Earth is analyzed, and I believe that many, even flat earthers, are already analyzing and investigating more deeply because they see that there are things that are not that do not fit, and can fit. I believe in no way. So I would advise all the people who are in this investigation, well, no, don't come back. Well, having discovered that maybe there are things that are being realized, many theramanists who do not fit but do not return, as some have done. Well, the official model, before seeing and studying in depth, well, the models or the concave model really, because it really makes everything fit for you. And I have to say that for practical purposes, for practical purposes, it must be recognized that one thing, and to have a 111 model, going to the most essential, not of the models, no, a model of space is that you can move in a coherent and logical way in space. That is, you have a type of map, because the human being, well, when you come here, you are a child. Well, that is the first thing that your mind unconsciously elaborates. 111 map, a map, although no, I can't yet put it represented on paper. You know, in one direction, there's a hallway, the right one goes out. Then what you have to do to come back is say, that's basic. So a theory of space has to have at least one map that is coherent, for example, with the movements of ships and planes. And we have to recognize that, except for the exceptions of proximity to the poles, well, all displacements are coherent. Now, what happens that we have seen, and many of us have already known that in many other points, such as, for example, all its movement, all its size from the Earth of the stars, EH, well, it doesn't correspond to reality at all, does it? But at that point, they would know obvious. Normally, I believe that an elite has always known what a model can be, since it knew how to be a coherent map. Now, the flat map, I don't think you'll ever get it. Hey, seriously, my opinion is that it doesn't align with any type of travel. Even if they impose themselves, well, the Earth is flat. But truth is, it's just more basic than space in your specific location. Ships, planes, all travel rely on the official model. That's the way it is. So what? Why? What it would be to continue like this, insisting on a series of hypothetical assumptions, like that water does not curve, and like that the Earth has to be flat, when even I can't make a flat map. And if there is no map, tell me what kind of model of space, if there is no map of space. Well, it would be important then for you to see that the map is concave, because it is exactly. We can say that for practical purposes. Exactly. Exactly as effective as the official map, huh? So they should take that into consideration a little and say, well, here you can find a way out. I don't have to go back to the official system, huh? I'm going to investigate the concave models because they are equally coherent, for example, in the basics of displacement. But it's not only that, it's that they are much more coherent for me in everything else. Hey, in everything else, in the size of the stars, in the seasons, in everything, and in the autoidal model that I say of stomagnetism, well, for me, even in more philosophical questions or even concrete, hey, of the life that you see reflected, that model in everything, not therefore. Anyway, I finish here. I say goodbye. I thank you very much. Sebas, I advise people to look. The Sebas's video that is titled Height View on the Concave Earth. Okay? Paralyze that video that for me, for the purposes of, let's simply say, coherence, well, it gives you, well, one is precisely discarded. Well, these are these terrapanist options of considering that you can see so far, so very far away, very...
And that's also coherent. I mean, in the concave model, this observation impossible at 600 kilometer a depth at 10 kilometer altitude is also based on the angles of incidence of sunlight. It's based on Eratosthenes' experiment and spherical angular ratio. So the light in the concave model behaves in a way always the same, except for these issues of more secondary or temporary or climatological effects of each moment, that in which, as you well point out, Jose, you do not have to rely on variable issues to lay the foundations of a model, then yes, in that Norquinial model is. Well, you already know that in that video it was like an explanation to what he asked here, so it looks like 450. How high? I don't know how high it looks. At each height, I can't tell you how much you see, but I rounded you up that at approximately 10 kilometer, no more than 400. That's what I'm saying. Considering and that sometimes there is refraction and that light can reach you farther than dE under the right conditions, but taking it as a constant, I said 380 and add a little more for refraction, but without exceeding it too much. Thank you very much. Jose here, he says to finish. I think people confuse the concept of operation. Theoretical model with the concept of what the Earth is like, because the Earth is still flat. That says, I don't know if you have anything to add. And with that, we finish Jose to say goodbye.
Well, nothing. I can say that I am very satisfied. I hope someone can use this video, and I also announce that we have another one projected as well. Hey, because this question of the horizon, as we will be seeing, is important. So we also have another planned to see if fate allows us to do it. And what I hope above all, I hope, well, that the person will focus on the concave models, because sometimes it is difficult for me to understand why. So many flat earthers simply listen to the model and already discard it from the beginning, when in reality it has points, very important points in common. For example, points where you can't get out of here, because they also say that there is a type of domes, etc., because they are points, important points that we have in. On equal terms, we also agree that we have all seen that an official NASA type system. Well, really? Well, no. He's not telling us the truth, is he? Well, we agree on that too, So, what is true is that that type of revolution can cost a little. Of revolution, of thinking we were out. Now we're inside and it's easier. Apparently it is simpler. Well, everything flat like that. But of course, but they don't have to stay there, because you have to have all the phenomenology and simply think or try to create a map of displacement. Yeah, what will they see? That they will verify that no, that there's no way? No, then nothing. I say goodbye here.
And it's not him that...
We continue at this point of investigation. I also have to say that I don't want to get into, can we say that in opposition to terrorists? I would get along very well with them in any other type. What happens is that we think differently on this point, but that we also agree on many, many positive things, of this system, like how this system tells us the truth, etc., etc. No, and my interest is that even above theories. Well, people are there and people can get along, If we're honest with each other, although obviously everyone is in a kind of personal and particular experiences and particular research, and it is logical, then no, that we consider in some things and not in others. Well, nothing. I say goodbye to you, Sarah. I thank you for everything you are doing, and let us hope then nothing to continue this investigation, because I am open and I am flexible. They make a more coherent argument to me, and I have no problem adhering to the coherent and changing everything that needs to be changed. Indeed, I believe that those of us who are concave have above all a search for truth more markedly than others. I think more strongly, that is, why not? Depending on what I see, I also don't know my feeling. No, I don't know if maybe I have accepted you. Well, nothing will happen. I say goodbye to you and everyone, and also, well, say that you believe that you are going to put this on video, also not. But to people little by little, well, you can postpone and see it with you because I think it's worth it. Well, nothing. The next one.
Thank you, Jose Ainor Quiniel. EH clarified that it is perceived flat, not that it is flat. EH. We agree with him on that. Thank you, Joseph. Greetings until next time.